as part of a criminal scheme to violate campaign finance laws. And you can find the details of that scheme directed by Mr. Trump in the pleadings in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. So picture this scene. In February of 2017, 1 month into his presidency, I'm visiting President Trump in the Oval Office for the first time, and it's truly awe-inspiring. He's showing me all around and pointing to different paintings, and he says to me something to the effect of, "Don't worry, Michael, your January and February reimbursement checks are coming." They were FedExed from New York, and it takes a while for that to get through the White House system. As he promised, I received the first check for the reimbursement of $70,000 not long thereafter.
Anyone that's worked in the White House will tell you that they, where he goes to, so picture this scene and then describes the checks to Michael Cohen to pay the porn star is when they slowly die 1,000 deaths on the inside. This was the cover-up, and in Mark Pomerantz's telling of this, and in the case that Alvin Bragg has charged, he constantly reminds people this is also an election interference case. This is about the elections. This is about cheating. This is about lying to the voters, not just people who didn't vote for him, but the people who did.
Yeah. I mean, that never is not jarring when you hear that. And I think some of the witnesses we're going to see are going to come forward who are going to say, some of his staff, that they sent the FedEx package down, those checks were in there. But when you hear that, it's never not a shock to the system.
Talk about what they've done to corroborate that dramatic testimony, as Alvin Bragg seems to have done meticulous work to protect and almost preempt the character assassination that is expected on Michael Cohen.
Right, and I think that is going to be furious when it happens. And we saw a glimpse of that, or not a glimpse of it, we saw it in full bloom during the civil trial when Michael Cohen testified. There were a lot of fireworks and a lot of allegations against him, and they're going to come for him. But the case is more than that. And I think that, we talked about David Pecker, and he is one piece of it. But we're going to be bringing in Hope Hicks. There's another employee from the National Enquirer that's going to come in. And all of these, if you imagine this is a jigsaw puzzle, these are all pieces that Alvin Bragg is going to put together to show the interference and to show he's got to show intent and Donald Trump's intent and what it was. Keith Davidson is another one that we mentioned. He's going to show that intent, that once the Access Hollywood tape was released, that the pressure on Donald Trump to make the payment to Stormy Daniels became even more intense. There was speculation at one point that, there's been testimony that Michael Cohen was told, wait till after the election to make that payment and to make another one. All of this is going to come together in a picture that Alvin Bragg's trying to put together with documents and other people cooperating it.
Again, we don't know which witnesses each side will call, but Trump is on one of two witnesses on the defense list. Let me show you some of how he's fared recently in depositions.
I don't even know who the woman, let's say, I don't know who, it's Marla.
You're saying Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla, yeah. That's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here.
Carol.
Oh,
the person you just pointed to was E. Jean Carroll.
So again, I think our viewers are familiar with that. He points to a picture a few times, says it's Marla, who he was married to, and it's E. Jean Carroll.
He's also so used to casually lying that he's like, yeah, it's Marla. It's like he's in a deposition. There are consequences. He can't recognize his wife from decades in the past, nor the woman who is suing him, for defamation and sexual assault. And Donald Trump on a witness stand, Donald Trump under oath, is a dangerous place for his defense team to be, because he wilts under the fact pattern. And a skillful prosecutor, as I think journalists who know how to interview him in a certain way, if you corner him in a place where he can't get away with histrionics and can't get away with these appeals to emotion, and he just has to specifically answer to very targeted questions around a fact pattern. Did you lie about X? Did you do Y? What did you mean when you say this? He loses his temper. He has no self-discipline. He bloviates. He exaggerates. He is the case study. He could be brought into any law school in the country around what you don't want your witness to do on the witness stand. And he doesn't listen to his own attorneys because he doesn't listen to anyone's advice. So he's an unknown quantity, and he could get himself into a lot more trouble on the witness stand than he's already in. My experience in a similar situation with him was our attorneys just kept pushing. He sued me for libel, and we just
about more the size of his bank account, right?
Yes, about how wealthy he was, and the idea that he never exaggerated or lied about how much money he had. And we just had a number of different examples of, well, actually, you said you got this much as a speaking fee, or you said you sold a condo for this much. A relentless parade of facts that he couldn't contest and had to admit he was lying. If they want to try to undermine Michael Cohen as a witness by character assassination or undermining his credibility, at the end of the day, there's a tape recording. At the end of the day, there are checks. And what would Michael Cohen really have to gain out of saying this was what they were for, and this is why I did it? I was his fixer. This was part of my role. I just don't know in front of a jury when they hear that tape or any other evidence they have to substantiate the bona fides of what Michael Cohen has put into play. It's not going to look good. And Trump is not going to be helpful to them, I think.
I also think, Harry, there's a disorienting reality, fake reality that we all live in. I call it Earth 1 and Earth 2, and it's our politics. And in our politics, which are so perverted and distorted from the Republican Party collapsing around Donald Trump, we talk about Cohen's character assassination, and that's because he has allies in the House Republican Conference that were set up to go out and attack him. A courtroom is totally different. Like, Matt Gaetz won't be in there. There will be lawyers, and they will be asking questions. And if the answers aren't truthful, anyone that lies could be charged with the crime of perjury. This is sort of a Trump's, a Kevin McCarthy, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene free zone.
For sure. Look, they do have some things to go after for Cohen, including a perjury conviction. But you're right, and this happens in so many cases, and the prosecution's used to saying, look, we've corroborated, and did he seem credible? And back to Trump, it's not simply dangerous, it's a second-by-second train wreck and perjury fest. He cannot testify. That's my axiom number one, and I'm sticking to it. And I know you don't like it when I get legal, Nicole, but it's really important to emphasize one point. If he doesn't testify, almost everything he's going to want to say can't come in. The rules are that the prosecution can take anything he said and present them, but he can't do it on the other side. If he testifies, he maybe can, but then he's subject to cross-examination on every one of the, how many lies did the Washington Post find? 30,000, just pick your best 20. And there's so much there. We're going to find out, even if we heard it before. I want to give you one snippet from what you were talking about last time. Cohen says that around this conversation, Trump asked, well, since we won, we don't have to pay her now, right? Talk about a vivid showing that, in fact, this was all about interfering with the election. He can say that. The prosecution can say that if it came out of Donald Trump's mouth. Donald Trump's defense cannot, unless he takes the stand, which he cannot do.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.